When you talk to somebody who's done a lot of travelling, they'll say sometimes, yeah, I've been all over the world, been to every country in the world. But you really know they haven't, because there are so many tiny countries in the world that you'd be surprised if anyone ever visits them. Well, my next guest has. His name is Lee Abbamonte, and he has literally visited every country in the world. Why? We'll find out. Lee, thank you for joining us. What's the motivation?
The motivation actually just kind of happened by chance. I never actually intended to go to every country in the world. It just kind of progressed as I went along. About 2006, I got an email from a friend basically telling me that there was a record for being the youngest person to go to every country in the world. And since I'd already been to about 120, 125 countries, I figured I would go for it.
How long has this taken you so far?
I finished going to every country in the world in 13 years. 13
years. That was non-stop travel.
No, it wasn't nonstop, but I had some long trips in there, and if you go to certain regions of the world, you can get a bunch of countries down in one trip as opposed to just doing it constantly. Because I still, I had a regular job in New York and family, friends, that kind of stuff.
Can I ask you how you were able to afford to visit every country in the world?
That's probably the second most popular question I get asked. And, I afford it by, I was working, had a really good job, made money, I saved it, and I used that money to travel. I mean, what better way to spend money, right?
Absolutely. How many countries are there in the world?
Well, that's an interesting question because there's a couple different lists. Technically, there's 193 sovereign nations, meaning members of the United Nations, and I've been to all those. Now, the list that I also go by is called the Traveler Century Club list, which has 321 countries in it, and that includes basically territories. For instance, French Guiana is different than going to France, or Martinique or French Polynesia is going to France, so they all count separately. So it's a more comprehensive list. It shows that you've traveled more around the world.
Can I just throw a few names at you, and you can tell me, if you've been there, and I'm sure you have, and what it was like. For example, some of these places that people have never heard of. Abbamonte is also known as Burkina Faso.
Yeah, Upper Volta changed names about 20 years ago. I remember looking at a map as a kid and thinking it was a really cool name, kind of like Sri Lanka. But now they call it Burkina Faso. And actually, I spent a couple days there in 2009, and I had a great time. Actually, ended up in a poker game in the middle of Ouagadougou, if you can believe it.
I can't believe some of the names, let alone a poker game there.
Yeah, I'll give you $10 if you can spell Ouagadougou.
No way. You keep your $10. What about, let me see here, Eritrea? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Eritrea. It's a former Italian colonized country. It used to be part of Ethiopia. It broke away, I believe it was like in 90 or 91. It's a wonderful country, actually. They have great Italian food. They have a lot of Italian influence. They have a lot of Art Deco in the main street in in Asmara, which is the capital. Also, although you need a permit to drive around the country, which is kind of annoying, some of the scenery in the mountains are absolutely gorgeous, and it's a really nice country. I had a great time there.
Let me take you to the Middle East. What about Ras Al Khaimah?
Ras Al Khaimah is one of the 7 emirates in the UAE, and it's actually I guess what you'd call the biggest up-and-coming one. I believe they had the America's Cup there, or some race very similar to it. It's known for yachting, and it's also they're building a ton of hotels. They're trying to make it the anti-Abu Dhabi and anti-Dubai. It's actually really nice up there. You should check it out sometime.
You have an amazing memory for these places, I'm going to tell you. What about...
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
It is. What about in Asia, for example? I can't even pronounce this. Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan, is it?
I'll give you another try, but it's Kyrgyzstan. It's actually a great it's actually a great place. A lot of it it gets mixed up between Kazakhstan, which was of course made famous from Borat, and Uzbekistan, which was kind of made famous by Borat, but it also has a lot more famous sites. But Kyrgyzstan is actually great. The capital, Bishkek, is very pleasant, very nice, and it's surrounded by the Pamir Mountains and has some really nice highways to go. It's a beautiful country, and the people there are number one, they're beautiful because they're basically half Russian, half Chinese, and it's just a great place to be. It's really nice.
Lee, I got to tell you, when I go on away overseas, for a holiday or whatever, I can remember a couple of things about places I've visited, but these are remote places, not on anyone's travel list except yours, and yet you know so much about them.
Yeah, my friends have been making fun of my memory since I can remember. I have this scary ability to pretty much remember everything that I do and see and read. It's kind of weird, but I guess in this case it's good.
Let me throw you another one. How about Brisbane?
Brizzy is one of my favorite places in Australia. Absolutely. I'll tell you what, it's the first time I ever saw the Rolling Stones back then in 2003. I saw them in Brizzy, and it's the gateway to Queensland. So I always had a good time there. Every time I was there, I was either going to or coming from someplace cool, and every time I spent time in Brisbane, I really loved it.
Oh, that's fabulous. Now, with all these countries that you've visited, what would you say is the prettiest?
The prettiest. That's a tough question because there's so many different ways to define beauty.
Yeah, true.
But I always say that for like natural beauty, such as like mountains and rivers and just beautiful, obviously New Zealand, Austria, Switzerland are right up there. But I'm going to throw a couple others at you. Bolivia and Namibia in southern Africa, I think, are two of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. And Namibia might actually be the most beautiful.
How about that? Now, what places are there that you go back a second time to see again because you've liked it so much?
Well, I've actually, believe it or not, of the 193 UN nations, I've actually been to, I believe it's 138 of them multiple times. And I will always go back to places that I love. I won't just go to a place just to go there and then say I've been there and not go. If I don't feel like I've done it sufficiently or if I feel like there's more places within the country I want to see, I'll always go and do that. I mean, I've been to India numerous times. I mean, some places have so much to see, you can't possibly see it in one trip unless you spend several months to a year there, like Australia, for instance, or India or Brazil or Russia, any of the BRIC countries or so many places. So basically, wherever I want to go back to or wherever I feel like I haven't done enough, then I'll go back because I just want to see and experience everything. And some places I really love. And plus the food isn't too bad in some of those places.
Yeah, sure. Well, are there many places where you don't want to go back to?
There's not many places I don't want to go back to. There's probably a couple I'd say I wouldn't go back to unless I had a really good reason. But most of those places are probably not on anybody listening to this is next itinerary.
Now, I'm talking to you today. You're in Killarney, Ireland. Where's next port of call for you?
The next port of call is back home to New York. I'll be home for literally about 36 hours, and then I'm doing a road trip in the southern United States, and then I'm heading to Southeast Asia, actually, for 3 weeks after that.
You have an amazing life, and people can keep track of your life on your website, can they not?
They can, yeah. My website, leeabbamonte.com, also my Facebook page by the same name, and Twitter also at Lee Abbamonte.
Just spell out your website for people.
Yeah, no problem. It's Lee, L-E-E, Abbamonte, ABBAMONTE.com, and the same goes for Facebook and Twitter.
Okay. Lee Abbamonte, nice to catch up with you. You have an amazing life, and it was nice of you to share some time with us today.
Ian, thanks so much. I really appreciate it, and have fun down there, and hopefully I'll be back down in Brisbane pretty soon.
Yeah, Lee Abbamonte. What a life. All those places, not only just visiting, but knowing so much about them. It's incredible. It's 11:15. It's Brisbane's 4BC.
We've got it covered so you don't miss a thing.
Weekend mornings with Ian Maurice.
Brisbane's own.
1116 4BC.